Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gaining muscle and losing body fat and how both conditions can be met over the long run by a strategic approach to your nutrition and your training. So basically yesterday I had a conversation with a guy who had a severe injury for a period of time. So he could not train for several months and he put on a lot of body fat during that time. So of course, as soon as he got back in the gym, his primary fixation was, I got to get rid of this body fat as fast as possible, right? But the problem that a lot of people encounter is that a lot of times they'll diet off their fat and their muscle in the same breath. They'll just lower the carbs down, lower the fats down, eat like a bird for a while, and then they'll drop some body fat, but then of course they'll drop some of that hard-earned muscle. So you could say this is a similar premise as if you needed money, you just sold off all of your assets that were making you residual income. Temporarily, you'll have more money, but over the long run, you'll have less, right? So it's the same thing with muscle. Muscle is the most important thing if you wish to preserve that metabolism and at the same time, be able to lose more body fat and stabilize your blood sugar over the long run, because the muscle helps with these processes. So the strategy that I'd recommend is centering your nutrition around your protein intake. And we've talked about this lots, but a lot of people talk about it. It's about a gram. Sorry if I'm dancing here, it's because mosquitoes are getting me. Sorry, it's just the mosquitoes out here. So the strategy so to start, what I'd recommend is eating around a gram of protein per pound of body weight, or per pound of lean mass anyway. If you're eating a little bit more than that, that's great, that's fine. This just in, 3 are dead and numerous others are injured after a so-called attack. So far, police are investigating, but they have no definitive suspects at the moment, although they have suspicions of the cat who lives on the property. The cat, who shall go unnamed, is claiming an alibi at this moment, but questions go unanswered. More at 11. Protein is not something you have to worry about being a problem. Protein is not going to cause you to put on body fat. If anything, it will help you recover. And then what you do is add a little bit of carbohydrates to each meal, such as yams, oatmeal, rice, and see how you feel, right? And of course, I'm talking about lean protein sources, not eating, super large amounts of fat. And then from there, what you can do is you start experimenting with your diet based on what is happening. But if you stick with this foundation, just this foundation for a period of time, as you're training, you will notice that you will feel decent in the gym. You'll be able to have the energy to train. And at the same time, slowly but surely, the body fat will start to trim off, assuming you have a normal metabolism. So from there, you watch what happens to your body, right? You're blending your carbohydrates and your protein together to help stabilize that blood sugar, to help give you enough energy for your workouts and enough recovery. But at the same time, if you start putting on a lot of body fat, then you know that you're eating a bit too much carbohydrates or too much fat. Now, if you're having a 10 to 15% fat intake in your diet, then obviously you have to look at your carbohydrates a bit. So just back off on the portions of the carbohydrates slightly each meal, and then you will notice that your body may respond better. But the ideal thing you want to do here is to not drop your food so much that you drop muscle tissue. That's the thing that people make the mistake with. They start to panic and then they drop their calories so much, they drop their food so much that then the body starts to liquidate the muscle, and then they start to get into a smaller fat body type, right? Because what you're doing is you're starving off the very tissues that are the ones helping you, right? So you want to constantly feed them, and they feed on protein and a bit of glycogen, not too much, but a bit of glycogen. And really what you do is you use fats in your diet to help with hormone production and so forth. So another thing that I found is that by eating the right types of fats, I can increase my energy and not necessarily put on as much body fat. So I have canned mackerel quite a bit, like North Atlantic mackerel. It's lower in mercury. It's got a lot of selenium, so the selenium prevents the absorption of the mercury in the body. But at the same time, there's a lot of omega-3s in this fish. So a lot of good fats in there. So that way my body has a harder time converting them to body fat, but at the same time, I'm getting the fats I need in order for my own hormone production and overall health, because you do need some essential fats in your diet. That's why they're called essential. But again, if I'm going to have a fattier source of protein that day in my diet, then I may go a meal or two without carbohydrates or starches. So really what I'm saying is that if you have protein in a meal, you pick what energy source you want primarily. That's what I found, is you either have carbohydrates or you have fats as your energy, and realize that if you have too much fat, it's really easy for you to put on a lot of body fat really quickly. So if you're going to eat quite a bit of fat at one sitting, just try to get as much of it as essential fat, like omega-3s that you find in fish, and you may find it in flaxseed oil and that sort of thing, instead of just getting, you know, a bucket load of saturated fat in your meals. But overall, the reason why I'm making this video is that I want you to change your focus as far as make sure that you're focusing on muscle mass first and foremost, and then skimming off the body fat just by making subtle adjustments to your diet. Instead of saying, okay, my primary focus is just to shred body fat, and then you basically starve your muscle off, and then you're kind of like inflating and deflating constantly, right? You're always, you know, 1 minute you're losing all your muscle, then you're bringing it back and losing it. This is not going to help you in the long term. In the long term, you're going to get more results from just adjusting the diet slightly, but always focusing as the main foundation is putting on muscle mass. And that will serve you far better in creating a bodybuilder type physique, such as having a leaner amount of body mass, being healthier overall, and at the same time, being able to recover properly. Because if you're not eating enough, you won't be recovering, and then we get into a whole other sort of problems or issues there, such as, you know, joint inflammation, right? Your knees and your back and your elbows and stuff, it may be coming inflamed because you're not giving the body enough macronutrients in order to heal from the stress you are putting it through. So first and foremost, you want to be able to heal from the stress you're putting on the body, and from there, then you just make micro adjustments, just little adjustments, and then see how the body responds. So that's my main focus. That's kind of the way I do it. Sometimes I'll go through stages where I'm in a lower fat type of diet, and then I'll go through stages where I use fats a bit more for my energy. For instance, today, instead of having oatmeal for breakfast, I had a can of mackerel, and then I worked out, then I had another can of mackerel, right? And there's about 40 grams of fats in a can of mackerel along with 40 grams of protein, so it's pretty high. But then after those two meals, I'll have some lower fat type of meals, such as a little bit of rice and chicken, or you know, maybe some liver and yams or something like that. And I'll always make these decisions about protein and an energy source, and I'll put them together, but I don't oversaturate myself with the energy. That's the thing. You don't want to have too much. And if you're having too much, then that's when you'll notice you start to put on body fat. Mountain. It's pretty quiet up here. The bears are scared of me for some reason. They know it's time for me to eat, you know, and then of course they hide. They always use the excuse they're hibernating, but it's summertime. They're not hibernating. They're just hiding from me. That's usually what happens. Cowards! So I hope this helps out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get hold of me, just go to naturalbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now.